Pleasant day to everyone. It might be evening, noon, or morning in your place. So, a pleasant day to everyone. I hope that you are safe. We were supposed to meet each other last March, but when the pandemic struck, we had no option but to cancel this event. And now we are rejoicing because even if there's a pandemic, we are able to meet each other virtually. So the topic of discussion that I would like to present today would be healthcare for children in developing countries in the COVID-19 context. I would be talking about children and children with disabilities. Before the pandemic, I intended to talk about children with disabilities in the context of developing countries. However, when the pandemic struck, it dawned to us that there are more problems that occur with this marginalized group of people. We'll be discussing this. And there are areas for research that we can look forward to, given the data that we already have. The data, of course, is driven by empirical evidences and whatever is reported in the context of the pandemic. Why did I choose to talk about children? I have been in practice in the counseling profession for more than 22 years. And I have been in a lot of settings, the school, the hospital, the industry, and the community. And I have served a lot of people, both marginalized and not marginalized. I have seen here that the effect of any calamity, the effect of any epidemic in the country would primarily concern children and they would be neglected. Therefore, I decided to talk about them in the context of this COVID-19 pandemic. According to the World Health Organization, they are the world's most vulnerable, marginalized, and stigmatized populations. And when you talk about children with disabilities, they are more vulnerable, more marginalized, and more stigmatized. There are some underlying health conditions also that place children living with disabilities at a higher risk for becoming infected with and developing severe illnesses as a result of COVID-19. I have received reports and I have read reports of children with disabilities, particularly developmental delays, contracting the virus. And it was difficult for them to get treatment because they could not understand what was happening to them. Some of them needed their parents to be with them. One mother even prayed that she hoped that she had COVID-19 and she was happy when she also contracted COVID-19 so that she could take care of her son who has developmental delays. So COVID-19 has an effect to everyone, but it seems to it that the effect on children and children with disabilities is even greater. When you talk about the pandemic and you do a Google search, you would see these images. You have here healthcare workers, the frontliners, and a lot of quarantine sites. In the Philippines, we have mega quarantine centers. These are very big quarantine centers for people or patients who have COVID-19 or who are suspected to have COVID-19. We have a lot of facilities in the country. COVID is not only the problem. When you talk about this pandemic, you also talk about financial crisis because of the lockdowns that happened. A lot of companies shut down, a lot of businesses went bankrupt. You see here pictures of people begging in the streets. I have here pictures of jeepney drivers. Jeepneys are transportation vehicles here in the Philippines, and the drivers are not allowed to drive their regular routes. That's why they are resorting to begging in order for them to survive. You have here a lot of people lining up for aid. Even if the government gave us some financial provision through a social amelioration fund, these funds are not sufficient in order for the people to survive. A lot of fathers and mothers of children who have developmental disabilities have lost their jobs, and currently they are not able to sustain therapy for their kids because of the pandemic. When it comes to regular children, you also have here difficulties of undergoing remote learning. Some kids learn online and some kids learn via modules. If you have parents who have a lower grade level, who have achieved a lower grade level, you have here difficulties of them teaching their children. That's why these kids become more marginalized. Even before the pandemic struck developing countries, a lot of us are already grappling with the problems brought forth by nature. In the Philippines, in January, way before COVID-19 hit us, we were struggling with the fact that the volcano, one of our volcanoes, the Taal volcano, erupted. And this brought forth damages to property. This brought forth businesses being shut down. A lot of people lost their jobs because of this natural calamity. We are also being struck all the time by typhoons, and this brings forth billions of pesos worth of damages. We have earthquakes and we have droughts, and it is quite difficult to sustain our economy with all of these conditions. For children living in these marginalized conditions, they are having difficulty with their education. They have double struggles right now because they have to contend with learning, and they are lucky if they have remote teachers available in order to teach content subject matter. But if they have parents, and if the parents do not know how to read or write, and they have parents who have difficulties with academics as well, how can they learn? These are all struggles that are being faced by children in developing countries. Aside from that, we have children who are living in poverty conditions. The poverty conditions brought forth by the calamities and the loss of jobs of the parents cannot be denied. These children live in areas wherein it's highly congested, making them more vulnerable to sicknesses. Yes, we have COVID-19 in the country, but we also have diseases during the rainy season such as leptospirosis and malaria. We haven't solved these problems 100% yet. There's also a problem with polio and tuberculosis and other diseases that can be contracted because of the seasons, because of what happens in nature, because of the conditions and unhygienic, quote unquote, situations or lack of access to water in a lot of urban poor and rural poor communities. Issues of limited access to healthcare, limited access to healthcare professionals plague developing countries. For example, in one far-flung barrio, you can have one doctor that caters to more than 4,000 people. You have limited access to information, education, and communication materials. A lot of us have digital materials on COVID-19. In far-flung areas, the internet is almost impossible because there are no cell sites. Further, a lot of people cannot afford to buy computers, tablets, or cell phones. Therefore, they rely on print media in order for them to receive information. But because of the restrictions brought forth by physical distancing, a lot of these are not possible. There's also limited access to sanitation. We need to have a clean environment. We need to practice washing our hands and maintaining hygiene. But how could this happen if there are limited access to sanitation, for example, water? There are some areas in third world countries wherein water is a problem because there are limited facilities in order for you to establish a water system. Sometimes the water pressure also cannot reach high altitude areas. and this creates a big problem when it comes to sanitation. People there are at risk not only of COVID-19 but of other illnesses brought forth by unhygienic conditions. You have hunger and malnutrition as a perennial problem among people, among young children. There's much hunger because a lot of people lost their jobs and they are relying on the support of private entities or faith-based organizations in order for them to have the next meal. There are unsafe living conditions and there are people who are forced to live on the streets because they got evicted from the houses that they are living in. Some people would live in shanties and some people would live in pushcarts that we call kariton. They live in these unsafe conditions because they have no choice. They lost their jobs. Yes, they are trying their best to get jobs and to look for jobs. However, the situation sometimes does not permit them to have jobs. There are also community violence issues. There is a spike of community violence in the third world countries when the pandemics and the lockdown started. How many children have been victims of sexual abuse, of human trafficking, of online pornography? For I myself, I was involved in an investigation wherein there were children who were very young as 4 to 7 years old, and they were victims of online sex trafficking. There are also family issues. And in the family issues, a lot of children get maltreated and get hurt. Sometimes because the parents are very angry that they lost their jobs and they have their financial woes, they become short-tempered and the slightest mistakes of their children would result to much corporal punishment. When we talk about programs, we talk about legislation. In the Philippines, we have Republic Act 11223, which is known as the Universal Healthcare Act. This serves as the legal basis for funding and for the creation of programs. It is an integrated and comprehensive approach to ensure that all Filipinos are health literate, provided with healthy living conditions, and protected from hazards and risks that could affect their health. Of course, when it comes to healthcare, the WHO is the number one authority on that, and it advocates on primary healthcare. These are the services that are involved or included in primary healthcare. These services are supposed to be accessed by everyone, including children and children with disabilities. However, when it comes to developing countries, it would be normal for you to see children who do not have any teeth anymore. All of the teeth are decayed. It would be normal for you to see children who have lice, and it would be normal for you to see children who need deworming. For children with disabilities, there are some parents who would say, oh, never mind, I won't give education. I won't give much nutrition to that child. Never mind, I won't invest anything for that child because he or she would not make it big in the future. I know that that child would be under care, so I won't provide for health. I won't be providing for nutrition anymore. This is the situation of children and children with disabilities in developing countries. Now, we have understood the scenario and context of children in developing countries, healthcare support, and what is the condition. What could be done? What are the future directions of research and policies for healthcare that could be implemented in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic? Before we implement any research, policy, or project, we have to understand the health behavior model by Dr. Nola Pender. And this was devised and revised a lot of times. We have to understand that there are prior related health behaviors and personal factors that have to be involved. You have to, for example, deal with beliefs and practices within a specific culture. You have to sometimes involve faith-based organizations in the picture in order for you to have compliance. These would affect behaviors and cognitions. Hopefully, when they are taught well and educated, they would commit to better health and they would have health promoting behaviors implemented at a micro level at all times. This could be a model that you could follow. The health behavior model sees to it that individuals strive to control their own behavior. Hopefully, in the context of the pandemic, even if there are difficulties in hygiene, there would be some source of water present. And the people would be knowing how to maintain hygiene. What could be done in this situation? How could you maintain physical distancing in a heavily congested area? How would you create a system wherein people would follow health protocols? Individuals' work also need to be improved in order for them to improve their environment. Health professionals comprise the interpersonal environment which influences individual behaviors. There are village healthcare workers who can help doctors disseminate information in rural areas. And there's also self-initiated change of individual and environmental characteristics, and these are essential to changing the behavior of people. When it comes to developing countries, you have to understand that when you implement health change or when you implement projects that are not familiar, you have to first understand how they think, how they believe in things, and what systems are present. You would need to get the cooperation, for example, of their religious leaders in the community. You would need the cooperation of their village leaders in order for you to implement research and other projects. It is also important that as researchers, we examine ways and means to have access to online and telephone health services in the communities. This could be a project or a research proposal on how we could implement health services in far-flung areas. It is not always possible to have internet connectivity. However, there are areas in very far places that have access to telephones. We can make use of this, or we can even make use of the radio in order for us to deliver services. We could also tap some volunteers who are willing to join in collective efforts in order for us to help people who are marginalized and who do not have access to health care. All of these could be areas of interest. We also have to focus on the creation of information, education, and communication materials in the vernacular language. It is very much important that when we communicate, the people understand. A lot of projects, for example, on substance use prevention, are in the vernacular language. These are presented through videos, print materials, ads on television and on radio, and even posters seen. IEC materials communicate powerful messages of health change. When these materials are read by children, it could be in comics forms. It could also be in picture form. They would understand how it is to have better health care for themselves. They would understand, for example, concepts of physical distancing, wearing a mask, and keeping hygiene. These could be done in the vernacular language. It is also important that parents have access to these. In a lot of developing countries, it would be necessary to have picture representations because some people might have problems when it comes to reading the text. If you have pictures, and they say that a picture conveys 1,000 words, you have materials that can be used. These are sample information, education, and communication materials that are done in the context of COVID-19. This is done by the ASEAN Training Center for Preventive Drug Education. We have materials on breaking the chain of infection. This is translated in the vernacular. The teachers are using this, and some community workers are also using this. In fact, it is translated in a lot of languages and dialects in the ASEAN. Staying drug-free amid the COVID crisis is another information, education, and communication material that is widely disseminated, and we have this in the ASEAN region. There's also an information, education, and communication material on maintaining a healthy lifestyle for the new normal. You see here that the pictures would convey 1,000 words. Even if the person reading the material could not understand the text, at least the pictures are well understood. For children, it would be easier if they get access to materials on health via storybooks. The WHO has this book, A Kid's Guide to Coronavirus and Unstuck. This talks about quarantine. In the Philippines, we have a lot of storybooks that are produced. We have here, for example, the book Isang Metro, 1 meter, and this talks about physical distancing. And ang maskara ni Miko, the mask of Miko, maskara is mask in the vernacular. And this talks about the proper use of mask for children. The stories produce and provide a lot of health information in a non-threatening way for children. A lot of children would understand materials as they read the diagrams or the pictures depicted in the storybooks. You also have to identify health-seeking behaviors of parents and children. This would be a very good qualitative study in the area of healthcare. What are their beliefs regarding health? What are their beliefs regarding the COVID-19 pandemic? What are their beliefs on disease and infection? How are these beliefs affected by their access to healthcare services? Would be another dimension. What are the barriers for them? What are hindering them? What things are hindering them from seeking medical information or medical help, for example? What are the mediating conditions? All of these are factors for you to research on. These are areas wherein research could be explored in the area of healthcare for children and children with disabilities. We also advocate the adherence of health protocols, the provision of IEC materials, and the provision of IEC materials through videos and with sign language interpreters. Videos in sign language can also be produced, and this would be beneficial for those in the deaf community. A lot of people in the deaf community are saying that they do not have access to information about the pandemic. Perhaps it is high time to create materials in sign language in order for them to understand what is happening. Availability of materials in braille, in large print, in talking books are also important for those who have visual impairment. They do not have access to materials that are print, and they sometimes rely on screen readers in order for them to know what is happening in their immediate environment. Materials in braille and in large print are very important in order for people with visual impairment to know more about what is happening about the pandemic. Also, there is an importance of adherence to health protocols. We have to teach children to adhere to health protocols because a lot of people think that children cannot have COVID, when in truth and in fact, there are a lot of children confined in government facilities because they neglected to follow health protocols. It is also important that continuous research on other diseases that affect children in the COVID-19 context be investigated on. There's still cholera, there's still polio, measles, mumps, there's still leptospirosis happening. Research on these diseases and creation of programs in order to stop the proliferation of these must be done in the context of the pandemic. Let us bear in mind that these viruses, these bacteria, do not go to sleep just because COVID is there. We have to seek the help of private individuals to help solve the problem of employment and hunger. For example, there are a lot of faith-based communities and private individuals who are willing to help. This is a picture of a center that provides vitaminized rice to children in poor communities. One serving of rice, 1 cup of rice, would give a child all the vitamins needed for the day. We could tap the help of these organizations in order to help solve the problem of malnutrition. If you are researching in the field of malnutrition, try to find out if faith-based organizations and non-government organizations can help you solve the problem of malnutrition in your area. Mental health improvement, of course, is very much important. We need exercises to reduce anxiety, and these materials have to be produced in the vernacular language. A lot of people are worried because of the pandemic, and it is natural for people to worry, and it is also necessary for them to have materials in order for them not to linger on this worry or anxiety. Coping skills have to be taught to children. They do not understand what is happening. They do not understand the lockdowns that are happening. Perhaps it would be beneficial for them to have stories on coping and to have practical exercises on coping. This could be an area of research in mental health. Distress tolerance skills on what is happening, on the frustrations because of the pandemic, could be identified and could be researched on. Alternative forms of grieving could be researched on also. COVID-19 brings forth a lot of death, and children do not understand the dying process as easy as adults would do. Perhaps it would be necessary to create stories, to create materials, to create lessons on how they could grieve during COVID-19. It is very much important that grieving is discussed because this provides closure and this provides an avenue wherein children would understand the situation and move on. The discussion identified the plight and the experiences of children and children with disabilities in the context of developing countries in this COVID-19 pandemic. It identified areas of researches and future directions when it comes to program and policy development. It is hoped that with this virtual gathering of minds, we would be able to interact even if it is only through the chat box. It is also hoped that we could discuss inputs to our future researches, for our future policies, and hopefully we could solve some problems when it comes to healthcare and other research areas. It is also hoped that with all of the presentations, we will be able to create more research. Truly, the pandemic cannot stop us from learning from each other in this event. I know that there will be a lot of interaction happening. So let us all enjoy the learnings that we will have for this webinar. With that, I say maraming salamat po. Thank you very much. I hope that everyone has a good day. Keep safe.